So we have our second guest on the channel. We have none other than Bobby Fish. He is a former two-time NXT Tag Team Champion with Kyle O'Reilly, a former two-time IWGP Tag Team Champion with Kyle O'Reilly, a three-time Ring of Honor Tag Team Champion, one-time TV Champion, and Tag Team of the Year 2020. Thank you, Bobby.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me on. Yeah. That's it's quite the list when I look back. And I'm not sure I deserve any of it. But it was and you mentioned Kyle, and he and I for a long time there, just two peas in a pod. So we had, if it looked like we were having fun, multiply that by at least 10, because we were having more fun than should have been allowed.
Yeah. I mean, I watched you from your Ring of Honor days, and then you was the first to jump to WWE, and then I think a couple of months later Kyle came, then Adam, then Roderick. It's like you all came round about the same time.
Roddy was there first. Roddy was actually, yes, because Roddy had left maybe the year prior or maybe a little bit less, and was already in NXT. And then the three of us, our contracts were coming up, and then we ended up there, all kind of similar timing, but like boom, boom, boom. And then they actually didn't plug Roddy into the group until we were about a year in. But it was, it was perfect. And I feel like we really hit a different stride when Roddy got plugged in.
Was it always talk for Roddy to come in when you first started out as the Undisputed Era?
When we first started out, not that I'm aware of, but, I don't know. Hunter had whatever he had, already. We didn't realize we were going to come in as a group to begin with. Like, we were pretty sure Kyle and I, there was a good chance that we would tag, but we weren't even sure of that. So when the idea was presented to us to be, the three of us together, kind of didn't believe it at first, because we were just, our good fortune. You're waiting for someone to tell you that it's we're just joking. But sure enough, it turned out to be that, and it was a great move on Hunter's part. And then when I tore my ACL, they wanted to plug somebody in, and truly the only person that could have been plugged in that would have worked was the one that they plugged in, being Roddy. And I don't know, again, if Hunter had that, in his back pocket or whatever it was, but we kind of were able to keep going as a group without missing a beat, and just not, I could still be in the background, but obviously not wrestling while I was healing. And everything actually kind of kicked up a notch from there.
One match that rings to mind with you four as a group is in just before COVID in 2020. You did the Worlds Collide in the UK, I think. I could be wrong, but where it's like Undisputed Era versus Imperium.
Yes, sir.
That match,
we had a lot of fun. A lot of fun with that one. A lot of fun doing the precursor to it, which was a surprise for everyone, and that was awesome for just to be a part of something like that where nobody knew. And it was, in a day and age when it's really difficult to keep things off the internet, to be able to pull off the surprise was awesome. And then to cap it off by going to that UK, I think they call them PLVs now.
Yes.
Premium live events.
Yeah.
What, PLEs? What was that? Yeah, I don't, whatever.
Mixed up.
But it was really just a very cool time in all of our careers, a very cool time in wrestling in general. I mean, I think NXT was just, it was the spot to be in at that time. And we were fortunate enough to be at the forefront of that, and to be, you know, 4 guys that were all legit good buddies to begin with. Like, come on, it truly wasn't like we had jobs anymore. It was like, okay, well, you know, I get a paycheck to hang out with my friends. This is weird.
I think from like 2018, the start of 2018 to like 2020, just before COVID. I think that's when NXT properly took off with Adam and you guys, and just every week matches on that show, just unbelievable. Even the tag division was, I mean, because it had you guys, it had I'm going to say War Machine, but obviously the Viking Raiders. The Viking Raiders. You had
Profits.
Yeah, you had Tommy. I want to say Tommy Hendricks, not is it? It's Malachi.
Malachi Black, but he was Aleister Black then.
Yeah, you had Malachi Black, Aleister Black with Ricochet, which was a very good pairing, I thought, at the time.
Well, I think sometimes WWE kind of strikes oil in a way when they. Sorry, I lost you there. When they put kind of the makeshift tag teams together, which is a trend that they've done before.
Expect the unexpected, isn't it?
Excuse me. Yeah, it doesn't always work out the best, and then other times it really does. And that was one of those where, like, the opposite ends kind of worked. I think you see a little bit more of that with Ricochet recently.
Yeah.
I think they're coming out of it now, but with Braun Strowman, where you know, I mean, it does. It creates an interesting dynamic because Ricochet is athletic beyond like even imagination. And then Braun Strowman, you know, he kind of uses him as a projectile. But Ricochet's a cat, you know, he's always going to land on his feet. So if there's anybody that Braun Strowman can be heaving around, that'll be safe. It'd be Ricochet. Yeah.
Who was one person from WWE, even from the main roster or NXT, that you wished you would got the chance to have stepped in the ring with?
I've always had, always kind of held out to wrestle Samoa Joe. I've always wanted to wrestle Samoa Joe. You know, AJ Styles would be at the top of that list too, but I wrestled AJ in Ring of Honor. I was fortunate enough to get that opportunity. Kyle had an opportunity to wrestle Samoa Joe. Joe was a very strong influence on my style coming up, even though we're close in age, and I'm actually older than Joe. My come up, because I got started a little bit late by wrestling standards. I didn't start wrestling until I was like 24. So
what would that have been, like 2002?
Yes, around there. But I watched Joe kind of come to age in Ring of Honor, and that was when Gabe Sapolsky was, you know, to me, like, he kind of discovered Joe in a way, and then put him on this stage and gave him this epic run and made him the killer that he would eventually be known as. And I thought it was just so well done, and I kind of watched it, the whole come up, because I was trained by Tony DeVito. He was working for Ring of Honor at the time, so I was one of Tony's kids. And so I was at all the shows, and I just, Joe's one of the guys that was always able to blend martial arts into his pro wrestling in a very captivating way and a legitimate way. Like, I think you watch Joe and you know, like, that guy's put in some reps somewhere. He's not, you know, I mean, I've been doing martial arts since I was 8 years old, and I think I'm pretty good at spotting a phony. And Joe is not one of those. So, like, the influence he had on me early, I can't, I don't want to understate. And so I've always wanted to get a singles go with Samoa Joe.
Who knows, eh?
What's that, sir?
Who knows?
Yeah. You never say never in professional wrestling.
Best person to speak to is Mr. Tony Khan himself, isn't it?
I mean, we will see what happens. You never know. I don't know. I don't know. It's pro wrestling. It's the most unpredictable thing you can venture into.
Yeah, pro wrestling is, it's one of them that you've got to be invested into it. You've got to understand the art of it. People say to me all the time, it's fake, and this and that. Why do you like it? This and that and other. And I say to them, I say, this is what I say to them. I go, what's your favorite TV show? And then they'll go, I don't know, Power, just say for example. And I'll be like, well, what is that? It's characters, it's storytelling. You get invested. It's all this and that.
Mm-hmm.
I said, wrestling is like a craft. It's storyline. It's characters. You get invested into them.
Mm-hmm.
They draw you in, and they're like, yeah, I don't like it. And I just said, well, that's you.
It's not for everyone, and I completely recognize that. I have 2 daughters that could care less. I have another daughter who loves it. It just is what it is. It's not for everyone, but at the end of the day, what it is it's storytelling, but it's got an athletic element to it. You look at how big sports are everywhere, whether it be the UK and it be football, or whether it be the United States and it be football, a different kind of football, but football nonetheless. Sports is huge. Combat is huge. Conflict is human. We are tribal in our own ways. I'm trying to think of the book that I read. What was it called? Anyway, it was commentary very much on our human need for tribalism, and it truly is. I mean, you look at politics, Democrat, Republican. You look at people talk about their favorite baseball team or football team, and they speak in terms of we. It's to pick a side is to be human. So I think if you really boil all of it down, whether it's generally most movies have what? There's protagonist, antagonist.
Yeah.
There's a rising conflict, and the common thread is conflict. People enjoy or are entertained by viewing conflict of some kind. I mean, conflict of a football game is you're trying to get the ball in the net, and they're trying to stop you from getting the ball in the net. What is a Mission Impossible? Tom Cruise against against the world. Like, it's conflict. Pro wrestling is no different. It's conflict. We're putting characters out there. We're creating conflict between them, and then you get to see how the conflict plays out. Period. So
I think if we all like the same thing, the world would be boring.
Yeah. So, and it shouldn't be for everyone. It really shouldn't. And that's the same thing with pro wrestling as a whole. You have all different body types. You have all different styles. You have some guys that do most of their talking. You have other guys that are all about action. You have, it's a smorgasbord.
Yeah. Your time in AEW, who reached out to you to bring you in?
I came in challenging Sammy Guevara. He had just won the TNT title. Yeah. And I hopped on my Twitter. Actually, I don't big reveal here is I don't generally man my Twitter. Somebody does that for me. He's a friend of mine. But he is nice enough to handle it for me because I just hate Twitter. So I try to stay off of it. But that was kind of my way in, was talking shit to Sammy Guevara. And I've known Matt and Nick Jackson for many years. Kyle and I had a long running history with them in New Japan. So the link was there, and I'm not going to say I didn't encourage it along the way. I definitely did, but things worked out, and they brought me in, and I signed a contract, and off to the races.
Was it a very short contract that you was on?
It was 1 year. Yes, it was 1 year. That was a request on my part.
Yeah.
I wanted to do a year because I wasn't, not to get too much into the details of this, but I wasn't thrilled with where we were. And so at the end of that year, I felt like, okay, well, I will show you my value, and then we can talk about a new contract. And that was the plan. And then, we weren't seeing eye to eye at the end of that either. So, I decided to go elsewhere.
Yeah, because I remember that there were the trios tournament coming up, and then Kenny was coming back, and then it would have been Kenny and the Bucks, Adam, you, and Kyle. There was always rumors for that 6-man tag. Was there any ever talks about that?
I think that was the plan, but I don't know. One, it wasn't my book, and two, like, I didn't have the booker's ear. It wasn't as if Tony and I sat down and discussed ideas. Like, I kind of, would find out what they were, and then we would go from there. I know that Matt and Nick, unless they were lying to me, which I don't think they were, they wanted to push that direction too.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Why it didn't happen. I don't know. I mean, you got injuries, you got everything.
Anything happens these days.
Yeah. It just it kind of goes the way it goes. Nothing's guaranteed.
Would you return to AEW?
I will never be closed off to a conversation with anyone. I mean, I still love pro wrestling, and I need to have a job because they still send me bills. And so as long as those are still coming in, I got to find a way to pay them. And pro wrestling is how I would like to do it. I don't rule anything out, but it's got to make sense. Numbers got to be correct. I got a wife, and I got 3 daughters. Like, this is real world shit. And that's the thing. Well, I mean, I think pro wrestling, people get wrapped up in the drama of it, and that's cool. I mean, you should, and that's great. That's as long as people are still paying attention, but at the end of the day, you got to remember that these are real lives and real people. And, there's somebody's husband and somebody's father and somebody's brother and blah, blah, blah. So things got to make sense. Yeah.
Is there anyone in AEW you wish you would have the chance to have got in the ring with in that year that you didn't?
I'm going to go back and say Samoa Joe.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, because I would also, like, Bryan Danielson would be another one I would throw on there, but Bryan and I, we've hooked it up a couple times. One time prior to AEW, never in WWE, but we had another one, which was one of my favorite matches. Really enjoyed. I'll tell you the other another match that I didn't expect to be as enjoyable as it was, and for no particular reason, but was Darby Allin. That was, I think, my last TV match in AEW, and I went out on a good one. Like, I was very happy with that match. And it shouldn't have surprised me. It really shouldn't, because when Kyle and I were leaving, when we were going to NXT, we did a little, like, indie loop, and we really weren't tagging much prior to that in Ring of Honor, but we started tagging again independently. And one of our last matches was against Darby Allin, who at the time I didn't really know of. I think he was a West Coast guy, or like Pacific Northwest. And it was Darby Allin, Matt Cross versus me and Kyle. And I was at Defy Wrestling in Seattle. And it was a great, it was really fun to put together, and really a good match, and the people liked it. So it should have come as no surprise that I just want to mention how much I enjoyed that match there too. If there's anybody, outside of Samoa Joe, I think I just would have loved to have revisited Kyle and I versus the Bucks. I mean, that
Yeah.
was, I think that's what everybody wanted and was waiting for, and we didn't get it, and that kind of sucks. You know who else I've never wrestled? Oh man, now I got a bunch of ideas coming to my head.
Keep it
Never
coming.
wrestled Kenny Omega.
Oh,
I would like, I would have liked to have that one under whatever circumstance. And then another one.
another one.
What's that, sir?
Another one.
Yes, and another one, just because we had a match in Ring of Honor, but it was when he was still kind of getting himself figured out, and now I feel like he's full-on performer. I'd like to get another go with Adam Page.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think within the last, I think just before, well, since AEW even started, to be honest, I think the first year, everyone's finding their feet, because it's a new company and stuff. But I think the story that he was having with Kenny Omega, and then you had the Bucks. He was looking at the Bucks before he did the buckshot lariat, and then hit Kenny. Then Kenny was gone for a year, like recovering, and then Hangman was the champion for 7-8 months, and then even his matches with John Moxley. I mean, the Texas Tornado match got 5 stars by Dave Meltzer, and I think Hangman in the last year and a bit, I think he's really grew on me, because unbelievable performer. I don't think he gets the credit that most people should give him. Top, he's up there in AEW as one of the best, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. I think Page. Sorry, sir. I dropped you again. I think Page. Page is super capable. He deserves the spot he has, and I think the best is still probably yet to come when it comes to him. He's he can do everything. So.
Yeah, and what was Tony Khan like compared to Hunter? Were they both approachable, or did you find Tony different to Triple H? Or
I don't think that they're definitely different people. I wouldn't say one is better or worse. I just being the booker of the show, like you're the guy, and you're spread so thin. I don't think people take that into account a lot of times. And you have performers that are very selfish. We all are. At the end of the day, we're all pretty selfish, and it's well, what have you done for me, and what have you done for me lately? For some people, and you're not doing enough for me. So like, I don't think I will reserve judgment for anyone really in that position. I spare my judgment because, at the end of the day, I'm an employee and I'm there to do my job. I'm there to hopefully be able to fulfill my creative outlet. Because I think at the end of the day, that's really why we've gotten into pro wrestling is it's the creative outlet that we're all after. And so, I mean, I enjoyed working for both companies, both bookers, both, it's apples and oranges, really. I mean, they're two different human beings.
yeah, are you going to be in the UK anytime soon?
I'm trying to think. I was just over there for Progress recently.
And then you did one PW as well.
Or no, that's not Progress. I'm sorry, 1PW. Yes, my bad. You corrected me. Yes, and I had the opportunity to work Will Ospreay, which was awesome. Another one to revisit because haven't had a few matches with Will back in the day, New Japan, Ring of Honor, but that's a different Will. He's had so much come his way from then to now that it was really fun and interesting to get a go with him now. Now that he's become the performer he is. I don't think I'm in the UK anytime soon that I'm aware of. I know I'm in Chicago next week. I'm not really sure beyond that, to be honest. I know I have stuff here in the States. I don't think I'm in the UK.
The UK's got a lot of upcoming events. Do you know, like wrestling wise, we've got GCW coming over in September. We've got Defy coming over in August. You've got AEW coming to Wembley, which is
that's
17. Last time I checked, 72,000 tickets.
Wow, that's a shitload.
Yeah, and Wembley is huge.
Yeah, I mean, I have always enjoyed my time in the UK, so I would quickly sign up to go back. So if there's anybody listening to this and they're looking to book me in the UK, just give me a holler. Frank Ferraro 3 at yahoo.com. That is the easiest way to get in touch with me. I just always enjoyed my time in the UK. It's fans are super passionate. They love you, they hate you, one way or the other. Like they're gonna react. So that's all we're looking for. I mean, that's all I'm looking for. Love me, hate me. I don't. It's all the same.
Yeah. So you've pretty much traveled everywhere around the world, haven't you? Pretty much when we're talking about the career that you've had.
Yeah, I mean, I look back. If I look back at it, which I try not to look back much, I try to look forward. But if I look back at it, like I've worked every place I've wanted to work. Some places I had written off, going to at certain points in my career, because there's been, like any other career, lots of ups and downs. It just is what it is. But like, I feel like in modern day professional wrestling, I've worked every place there is to work. I've been on the spearhead of some really cool shit. I've got to see places I would never have seen otherwise. I mean, just an example, and this ended up being not a wrestling event, it was boxing. I had my first professional boxing fight in November.
Dubai?
Yes, and it was in Dubai. And that came as a result of the name I've created in pro wrestling, no other reason. So I just happen to, have been doing martial arts since I was a kid. So like I have legitimate skills in some way. So that's not something I would have ever predicted as the 13-year-old me. Like, oh yeah, I'm going to be 1-0 as a professional boxer and I'm going to do it in Dubai, which I probably couldn't even have, pointed out on a map at that time, when I was a kid. And then furthermore, on the undercard of Floyd Mayweather, like,
wow.
Come on. Yeah. Just crazy to think like, oh, whose life is this?
Out of all the countries you've been, though, because you've got America, you've got the American fans, you've got the UK fans, you've got the Japan fans, Japanese fans.
Mm-hmm.
What crowd or country would you say that gives the most energy?
The UK crowd when we did the run-in on Imperium, I don't remember. It wasn't when Worlds Collide. That was the payoff. But when we did, it was in Blackpool, I think.
Yeah.
And the four of us, we ran in on them at the end. That was, I mean, I don't know that I've ever heard a crowd quite that loud in my life. But then if I go all the way back to Barclays Center, when Kyle and Adam and I debuted, when Kyle and I came out, and then Adam, took out Drew from behind, when we went up the ramp and the crowd recognized where Adam was going and they did the Bebe thing, that was some serious energy too. So, I mean, if we're talking about specific instances, I'm gonna say those two. So I guess I'm kind of not answering by answering, because I'm saying the UK and the States. But there's been some good ones in Japan too, man. I mean, all of those Tokyo Dome shows, 40 some odd thousand people. Yeah, incredible.
What match would you say that what match would you say that hooked you into wrestling as a kid? Who got you into wrestling?
I don't know about the match itself, but like when I was real young, the British Bulldogs and Ricky Steamboat were the first two acts that really looped me in. I mean, I was obviously a Hulkamaniac. I think everybody was. But that drew me eventually. I was always into martial arts. So, getting drawn into Ricky Steamboat at that time, doing kind of the martial arts gimmick, which I believe was a total gimmick, but I didn't really know the difference. That was a natural lane for me to go to. And then Dynamite and Davey Boy were just captivating to me. They were, both built like, gymnasts, and Dynamite Dynamite reminded me of a gymnast. But like a gymnast that would kick your ass. And I'm not the tallest guy in the world, so I think I related to that. I was a younger brother, so I was always trying to like live up to my older brother, especially when it came to like football and stuff. So that's who I identified with. I'd say the Great Muta. When I started watching the NWA stuff, the Great Muta was so he was like a comic book come to life for me. I was so into martial arts and so into ninjas, and I loved pro wrestling. So I was a big Sting fan at the time because he looked a bit like Brian Bosworth, and Brian Bosworth was my favorite ball player at the time. And so the program that Sting did with Muta, man, it like lit my brain on fire. I didn't realize people could be that athletic, and that really drew me in. Really drew me in. It's interesting to think too, because Dynamite would kind of just disappear from TV in my childhood, and then Muta, who had this great build in WCW and NWA at the time, and then he just disappeared from TV too. And at that time, you got to remember, there wasn't the internet and all that stuff, so people didn't know really. And I, as a kid, I had no means of finding out like what happened to Dynamite, what happened to Muta, and they did go on to have further careers, but I wasn't privy to it.
Yeah. Who would you say is your Mount Rushmore of wrestling, or have you just said him?
I mean, I gotta put Muta up there. Are we talking? Well, I mean, are we talking all time, current day?
That's about we do current day, and then we'll do of all time.
Okay, current day. I think you have to put Seth Rollins up there for sure. As far as active guys, I got to put Seth Rollins up there.
Hardest worker in the room at the moment.
I'm going to put Sami Zayn up there at the moment, as far as just being you can't stop watching what the guy's doing. And he does it without, cutting electrifying promos or, wrestling only great matches. I mean, he does have great matches, but like that's not the only way he can entertain you. The worker in me being on this side of the curtain, so to speak, was super impressed by what he did with Johnny Knoxville at Mania a couple years ago. And then I don't know. I mean, geez, guess you gotta put kind of have to put Roman Reigns up there, right? I mean, the bloodline stuff right now is some of the best stuff I've seen in maybe the past decade in pro wrestling.
3-year long storyline, isn't it?
Yeah. And then the other one I'm going to put up there because he has risen to the top every place that he has ever been. And doesn't matter the circumstance. He's just always found a way to get there, is AJ Styles. He's just always found a way to be, one of the top guys, if not the top guy, every place he's been. So,
AJ Styles is very, he don't get the name phenomenal for a reason, does he?
Yeah. And then, my own, if I could plug in one honorable mention, it would be Samoa Joe, and that's got more of a personal touch to it, just because I've always, just been such a fan of Joe's work. So, yeah, there's my current day Mount Rushmore
of all time.
Yeah. Okay. All time. Boy, I gotta put Muda up there.
Samoa Joe.
I think I'm going to stay away from anybody that I put up there for the modern day. And I'm just going to stick for because I'm a fan of too many people. That's the problem here. I am going to put Dynamite Kid up there because he influenced so many people. So many. Oh, and wait, are we on? Yeah, we're on all time.
Yeah.
I can't not put Eddie Guerrero up there. I gotta put Eddie up there. And then there's just so many to pick from. I don't know who else I would. I'm definitely gonna leave somebody out because I only got one more, right? I got one more.
Good pick so far.
I mean, an argument can be made for Flair, definitely. Hogan. It's just,
so many of them.
Nobody doesn't know Hulk Hogan. So, yeah, you got to put Hogan up there. You can't have an all-time or a Mount Rushmore without Hogan. So I got to put Hogan up there.
Eddie Guerrero. I mean, I was 5 when he passed away. And I watch his videos on like YouTube or the internet, and he was just so loved by so many, and his character, and he was just funny. And I don't think there'll ever be another Eddie Guerrero or like someone even close to him.
I think that's a pretty accurate statement. I don't, I mean, Eddie was, multiple generation. Coming up, it was in his blood. Just the perfect storm to create, a timeless pro wrestler.
Yeah.
I think Eddie would have been successful at any time in pro wrestling.
He's one person who I would have loved to have met.
Yeah. I've talked with his nephew before about
Chavo.
some of this. Yeah. We had Chavo on I have a podcast, the Undisputed podcast with Bobby Fish. And we were fortunate enough to have Chavo on. Chavo's another one that I hugely influenced by. I think that the that group of guys, for lack of a better term, the radicals or whatever you want to call them, they had such an influence. I don't think they get the credit that they deserve for various reasons, but the credit that they probably deserve for inspiring the wave of wrestlers of the generation that was coming up, like I guess we'll say my generation, and then the one that's come behind it. the influence, you don't have to, you can't not see it. It's really everywhere with all of those guys, with Chavo, Eddie, you know, Dean Malenko, some people that shall not be named.
Yeah.
Just, you know, it just, they were an epic group. And I'll say this too, is they're kind of, I'd like to think of, you know, the Undisputed Era a little bit like that, is that they were guys that took such pride in what they did that they wanted to be the workhorses. And I feel like that's who we were. And out of the ring, we legitimately were tight like that. You know, we traveled with each other. We had wrestled against each other. We had wrestled with each other. Like whatever the combination be, we had run it at least one time before. So I think that had a strong influence on whoever put us together, which my suspicion is Hunter. And then just on the way that we handled ourselves.
I mean, yeah, what you guys did in NXT as Undisputed Era will live on. I mean, it's the black and gold brand as we know it. What it is now, I mean, it's all right. It's not. He's got Bron Breakker, he's got Carmelo, he's got Dragon Lee, he's got people, and the people who's on there are very talented and in their own way. He's got Cora Jade, Roxanne Perez, but I think if you're going to change something, it doesn't need a revamp fully. These superstars could have come in and still have been the black and gold brand, if you know what I mean.
Well, I think everything does happen for a reason, as cliche as that is. And, you know, I don't want to make this spiritual or religious in any way, but, you know, at the end of the day, like it's not on our schedule, it's on his. And I think that, you know, when you look back, you realize why things may have happened the way they happened so that they could end up where they are today.
Yeah.
And for that black and gold brand, I think we hit a perfect window of time. But like everything else, good or bad, it has to come to an end at some point. It came to a very kind of strange end because of COVID.
Exactly.
But nonetheless, that may have been God's way of bringing an end to something that was so good, just so that it could be kind of definitive and move on to what it had to turn into next without people wanting to keep it the same, you know, because it had to be turned into something that wasn't so attractive and people didn't really, you know, I mean, nobody knew what the hell was going on after COVID kind of on everything. So it was just nuts. And I think that's a good redo. It's a good place to start over. I think the people at NXT did the best they could to figure it out. And, and they're still, it's turned into something different than what the black and gold was. And that's what it needed to be, was something different than the black and gold, because it wasn't ever going to be the black and gold. It couldn't remain that because there was a facelift. There were so many guys that moved on this way and moved on that way. Some left the company. So, you know, whatever it was, it couldn't remain the same.
Yeah. Do you still speak to Adam, Roddy, and Kyle?
Yeah, we're all still on a text thread together. So yeah, we never go more than a couple weeks without checking in with each other. We obviously don't see as much of each other today as we did at other times, but I don't think we'll ever not be in touch with each other. At least I hope not. I hope that we always stay connected in some way, which it feels like that's where we are.
Yeah. Do you wish you would had a match with Adam in AEW, like a different scenery, different family?
Against Adam?
Yeah.
I mean, Adam and I had a match, a singles match against each other when he was Ring of Honor champion, and it was at Manhattan Mayhem. Well, whatever it was the end of the year show, and I really feel like it went well. I feel like it was a good match. It kind of got overshadowed with Bubba Ray did a run in at the end, and there was, but things were moving in different directions, so they had to. But I feel like the match itself, I feel like Adam and I had really good chemistry as opponents, but never really revisited it from there. So I think that we could go out and have a banger of a match. But I don't have any regrets from not getting a chance to wrestle Adam in AEW. I mean, if they put it on the board, I would have been happy to do it. I do think, from a fan standpoint, I don't think fans really want to see Adam and I against each other. In the same way that I think it kind of got that way with Kyle and Adam too, where I don't know how well that worked from a booking standpoint.
You work better together, don't you?
I think so. I think fans. I think we got along so well as a group together, the four of us, that I don't think fans were down with me and Roddy when they tried that little brief thing with us in NXT, like against each other. I think any combination of the four of us. Yeah, I think any combination of the four of us together in some way they're cool with. But I think even Kyle versus Adam, which is the one that was they did have great matches against each other in Ring of Honor, but I just think after the Undisputed Era, nobody's interested.
No,
I don't know.
Whose idea was it to bring the Undisputed Era to an end?
In NXT?
Yeah.
I think it was probably like a group decision, but only based mostly on the fact that it was the only thing they'd not done with us. We had done everything else, and we were doing something at the time coming out of War Games, the last War Games, the fourth one with Pat McAfee, and then truth be told, some things changed on that end, which was totally outside of us. But it eliminated the direction we were headed in, and at least to my knowledge, so that I think they just didn't know what else to do. So they were like, well, hell, we'll just pull the trigger on it. And they did. And I think everybody regretted it after doing it. But hindsight's 2020, of course, we know how it turned out. And COVID would have taken a big fat, kick in the face on everything, regardless what we did. So
what would you say is the hottest thing in wrestling right now, or the hottest person?
I think the Bloodline, hands down. I think Bloodline is it's captivating. It's spawned other storylines. I think Sammy and Kevin coming back together and now going on this tag title run came as a byproduct of that. And I think that that's where a storyline is kind of confirmation that a storyline is doing its job, is when it can spin off alternative storylines that eventually get to a place where they have nothing to do with the original concept, which is kind of where we're at now. I don't know. It might not be everybody's cup of tea, but it's mine. I'm enjoying it. Still enjoy it to this day. Yeah.
Just each week, I keep seeing on like the news, or the news, like reports and stuff, that in 24 hours, so and so's got 1 million views on YouTube. Like the clicks and stuff. Yeah. And the Bloodline, they're just like breaking records at the moment and stuff.
They last week on SmackDown, if I'm not mistaken, they kicked off with a 40-minute segment.
Yeah,
it was just them, and there was no wrestling involved until the very end, and that's punch kick. It's not wrestling. So for the company to have that kind of faith in those particular performers, you have to know that those performers are in like that flow state where I think very few people actually ever experience, and they know who they are as people and who they are as characters so well that like they can carry a 40-minute segment like that. And for the company to have that kind of faith, holy shit, you know, I mean, it's that's incredible.
Onto the Bloodline and Roman Reigns. Who do you reckon should win the title? Who do you reckon should defeat him for the title? If you was going to give an opinion, and why?
I really, and this is where wrestling is at its best, is when you don't have a clear-cut answer. And right now, Jay is an obvious prospect. Maybe if you were to have the prospect, it would be Jay. And I'm not gonna be mad at that at all. But I don't mind, somebody throwing a monkey wrench in the whole thing too, and pick somebody that nobody's even thinking of. I mean, obviously, like within reason, you can't just like pull some guy from the hot dog stand, but maybe someone that isn't, or hasn't been for a while, maybe a Finn Balor or an AJ or somebody who's been in the title picture before.
Because it was
the way back. I don't know.
It was 3 times. I can call 3 times where I thought it's going to change. Drew last year at Clash at the Castle in the UK, but then Solo Sikoa came out. But then the second time would have been Montreal for Sami Zayn. And then the third time would have been Cody at Mania. That's 3 times where I've read and I think, do you know what? They're actually going to pull the big one here, but they haven't. So I'm like, who? You just think, and you're like, who could actually be the one?
It's a good question.
Yeah. But it's like after Jay, if Jay loses, which touch wood, he doesn't.
Yes.
If Jay loses, then this is my prediction. It could be wrong. Then I reckon they'll go on to Jimmy at the next pay-per-view. Then the next one, I reckon it'll be all 4 of them, including Solo, for a fatal 4-way at the next one. But I think that will be Survivor Series. Could be wrong.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. That would certainly bring all the pieces together.
Yeah.
Whether they go that way or not, I don't know. But again, like I said, that's when I think pro wrestling is at its best, is when there's more questions than answers.
Yeah. One final question. Sorry.
Yeah. Is it okay if I grab him?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, she's gone. Hey, baby. I'm just on that, doing that interview. I'll call you right back. It's okay, baby. Okay. I love you. Bye. All right. Sorry, sir. That's the life of a married man.
No worries. I know the feeling.
Yes, sir.
Always get bugged.
Yeah.
One final question.
Yes, sir.
So, MJF. What is your thoughts on him? And do you think in the last 4 years from AEW starting, his character? Yeah, I mean, you'll know from being in AEW. Is he 24/7 in that character, or is he just? Does he switch? Because even at conventions or cons, he's very. Well, he's an asshole, pretty much, to sum it up. Is he always like that, or has he got like, I don't know,
Well,
two faces?
it's not, you know, it's not for me to divulge, but it's not for me to figure out either, in my opinion. You know, people still talk to this day about Brian Pillman's loose cannon. And I think it's still debatable as to where the real Brian Pillman ended and where the loose cannon picked up. And I don't know. I mean, you know, pro wrestling is in such a just weird, kind of bastardized place at this point because of what the internet has done. So the internet has made pro wrestling bigger than it could have ever been, but it's also, you know, kind of turned it into something it was never supposed to be. So it's hard to say, and it's strange in some ways. MJF is certainly a talented guy, but there's, you know, like every other business, pro wrestling progresses, and it's progressed with a huge internet influence that has now lent itself to certain things being ways to kind of tickle the interest of the fans, of the demographic, and some of that stuff works better than at other you know, one time than it does at another or whatever. But I think that those things too can become crutches, and people might lean on them too much. I'm not saying that that's necessarily what he's doing, but he's certainly talented.
Everyone loves him, don't they? Every time he talks, they like listen.
His, you know, the opinions on him vary, and that's good for a performer. You know, you as long as the opinions are strong, you know, you just don't want indifference. You know, hate is good, love is good, indifference not what you're looking for. And I definitely don't think there's too many that are indifferent on MJF. I think you got people that love him or they hate him. So it's yeah, I mean, he's doing his job.
That's true. Thank you, Bobby, again, for
thank you.
going on and talking. I do appreciate this. Thank you very much.
Of course, man. Thank you for having me on. It was fun.
Yeah, I'll have to have you on again soon.
Yes, sir. Let me know.
Yeah, will do. Thank you very much, Bobby. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Cheers, bye.